At a major Hollywood studio, in a corner office of Sub-Basement D, the development executives toil in obscurity to reboot it. Welcome to the premiere episode of Reboot It, the series wherein we show Hollywood how it's done. This series has been long in the making, and it is, of course, a collaboration between your two favorite podcasts, the Nerd Goat Podcast and Hot Takes with Billy Business. Now, I have to warn you up front, what you are about to hear was originally just going to be a dry run. This was going to be an episode that we did just for the sake of getting our feet under us. The reality is it turned out so good, it had to be the premiere, and we think you'll agree once you listen to it. The one thing to be aware of is because this was a dry run, and the first episode we were going to record was going to be at Comic-Con, you will hear us momentarily interrupting ourselves with the voice of the crowd. Ed, Ron, and Billy are play acting as members of the audience. Now, we could have cut these parts, but they actually proved to be pretty vital to the story that we crafted over the course of the episode. So take it for what it is. This is us trying to anticipate some of the problems and questions that people would have with our story, and us rolling with the punches to create something even better. And if anything, that just means your feedback is only going to make this show more awesome. So reach out to us on Twitter, on Instagram. We are there. We are ready to hear what you think. But in the meantime, enjoy the very first episode of Reboot It. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in the golden age of IP entertainment. What does that mean? Whether you want it or not, all of your favorite franchises will be rebooted. It's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. And as long as the studios are doing this, we are here to lay a foundation, to chart a course to the greatest version of these reboots. I am producer Bill from the Nerd Goat Podcast. I have been an actual television development executive for the past 10 years. With me are my co-hosts, all of whom are major voices in the world of nerd entertainment, and together we are going to show Hollywood how it's done. First, to my left, you know him from Hot Takes with Billy Business, a senior producer at Screen Junkies, and a man with the most unpopular opinions on the internet. Give it up for Billy Business.
Thank you very much, producer Bill, the only man that I will share my Bill name with. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do this today, rebooting a character like Wolverine. This is going to be a tough one, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we will certainly see how it goes. Billy, let me ask you, just to kick us off, what is your favorite version of Wolverine? Obviously, the character's gone through many incarnations. He's been in comics, he's been in movies, he's been in TV shows, and throughout all of those, he's changed a lot. What is your all-time favorite Wolverine?
You know, I've never been a huge fan of Wolverine, and I've never been a big X-Men fan, but I always really liked the comic book series Wolverine and the X-Men, where he was kind of the lead teacher and taking on that kind of leadership role while also being kind of the gruff old man that he is. So that's kind of my favorite version of Wolverine.
Very interesting. We will see where the conversation takes us. To my right, you may have seen him on The New Negroes on Comedy Central. He is a weekly contributor to Screen Junkies Universe and, of course, one of the co-hosts of the Nerd Goat Podcast, which I produce. Give it up, everybody, for Ed Greer.
Hey, guys.
Ed, let me ask you right up front. Do you want to explore the origin in this Wolverine movie? We're rebooting the character. Do we go all the way back to the beginning and see James Howlett from the jump?
I don't like that stuff. I would love for us to have a little bit of a mysterious Wolverine. I'd love to bring the mystery back to the man with the adamantium claws.
Good answer. And finally, the co-host of the Nerd Goat Podcast, a longtime nerd comedian. You've seen him at panels and at cosplay shows all across the con circuit. Give it up for Ron Swallow.
I just did a roaring crowd with my name. Ron.
So many Mountain Dew.
Swallow.
Ron, I got to ask you, who is Wolverine's greatest all-time love interest?
I mean, it's obviously Kitty Pryde.
That's kind of creepy.
No, that was a joke. That was a joke, guys.
Ron bringing the jokes.
I mean, obviously it's Jean Grey.
Some people would say yes. Others would say not so fast, Ron. Regardless, this is our panel, and together we are going to reboot Wolverine. But first, let's talk about the franchise so far. Wolverine was, of course, first created for comics in the fateful year of 1974. He was created by Roy Thomas Len Wein and John Romita Sr., originally as an antagonist for the Hulk, but soon proved so popular that he anchored the all-new X-Men coming out later in the decade. He was first translated from the comics in a pretty famous cartoon pilot that never really got off the ground, Pride of the X-Men. It was an X-Men cartoon that was produced in the 80s. And then, of course, he hit it big with the 1990s X-Men the Animated Series, which is much beloved by people of our generation. Then, in the year 2000, the first X-Men movie, directed by Bryan Singer and, of course, starring Hugh Jackman, basically kicked off our modern superhero movie boom, with, of course, apologies to Blade. But the X-Men movies would go on to form a trilogy. Wolverine, of course, was the main character in all three of them. Wolverine was then spun off into his own movie series, starting with X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is not at all beloved, and that sort of continued what was proving to be a very up and down series of films for the character, which of course ended on what everybody considered to be a very high note with Logan in 2018. Logan killed the Wolverine character after many adventures on screen. In the comics, he's still going strong, but he has aged, he's died, he's come back to life. He now has hot claws, much to Ed's chagrin, as we've heard on various episodes of Nerd Goat. But the character has proven over the years to be one of the most popular and enduring characters in all of Marvel Comics. And Hugh Jackman's portrayal is almost universally praised as one of the greatest pieces of superhero casting of all time. And that about brings us to where we are right now. So, gentlemen, first question. What does an audience really want out of a Wolverine film? What's the bare bones here? What can we not get away with omitting from this film?
I think the thing that everyone can agree, even if you didn't like those X-Men movies, is that we want to see Wolverine at some point bust those claws out and do some berserker rage. The rage has to be in there. That is quintessential Wolverine.
I would agree. I also I think after watching Logan, that I want to see rated R Wolverine. Not necessarily from cuss words, just from the violence that comes with the character.
So yeah, we're on the same page here.
Yeah. Yeah, the Berserker Rage thing has to be shown in the damage it causes to not only the people around him, but in his brain as well.
Interesting.
Well, I think I would chime in with something I think we haven't seen before that I would really like to see. I would like to see a very skilled Wolverine, a Wolverine who is like using his not being able to be hurt in skillful ways. Like, I'll jump out of this floor of the skyscraper and go on through this other floor because I could take that fall and I could jab and I could do this and I could do that. Like something slick with Wolverine's abilities.
Strategic.
Yeah, instead of just I'm gonna rush up to you and get shot a bunch. I know a lot of guys that can do that. They don't have healing factor, so they don't have adventures.
Who do you know that could do that? Why are we here?
Personally,
that is a medical marvel, sir.
Hey, they don't have adventures because they die afterwards.
He knew those people. He doesn't know them.
Yeah.
He knew them.
You know what I mean? So it's like, let me watch the movie of somebody who can maybe dodge a couple bullets.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I do have to agree that I would love to see Wolverine even pull out a sword at one point and use the sword in combination with his claws, because we all know he's a classically trained samurai.
See, I'm going to come at this from a little bit of a different angle. If we're talking about what a Wolverine movie has to have, I think for a general audience, you got to get as far away from the Hugh Jackman version as possible. Okay. Because I think you are hampered from the beginning with comparisons to Hugh Jackman, and everybody loves Hugh Jackman Wolverine. So I think there's opportunity right away to make your Wolverine like a short, ugly bruiser, which is literally the exact opposite of Hugh Jackman, and sort of just recontextualize how people are supposed to take the character.
So we can finally get Danzig in, is what you're saying.
I mean, I would love it if, like, and you can retrofit it and upgrade it, but I want to see some version of a costume or of that classic costume.
The brown one?
They teased it so many times in like deleted scenes and end credit teases, and then we never got it. Like, just Do it. If you want to get as far away as possible from Hugh Jackman, give me that suit.
Well, yeah, and I think I agree with you, and I want that suit to be part of how he gets down. Like, you're gonna know in the movie that it's time for him to get down like the old days, the all for nothing days. When he puts that suit on, I would like that to mean something.
You can even put on like the brown kind of.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of. The Frank Miller original limited series, Chris Claremont one. That one. I want that uniform.
Yeah.
And
I think a variation on that uniform would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like another thing that has to happen with Wolverine is he's got to be able to like okay, so it always seems like he's always trying to stay out of trouble, right? And then he just sees something that he can't ignore. Or something that makes him so mad he has to do something about it.
Here's my only concern about that. The entirety of Wolverine in the X-Men franchise so far has been that story.
I guess
he literally has no other story in the X-Men franchise. It's all just...
I mean, that's how he is in the comics.
True, but I think to Billy's point, there's opportunity to make him something different, whether he's a teacher, whether, to give him more of like an established role.
So one of my favorite runs of comics was, I think it was around 2011, 2012 when they did Wolverine and the X-Men. It was basically like he was the head instructor, and a lot of the focus was on the kids and the way that he interacted with them. And I would love to see him as the mentor. And I think there's a lot of comedy. There's hints of comedy in the X-Men movies as relief, but I think you can get some legit comedy. But then I think if you mix in some of your ideas, and then someone comes to the school and he's like he has to be like, well, I'm a mentor and I'm a teacher and I have to protect these kids, but also I'm fighting my berserker. I can end this right now. I think that could be something kind of fun.
Interesting. I would also ask, what do you think the audience is sick of seeing when it comes to Wolverine? Because we've had 10 movies now.
Well, I don't want to say sick, but the only part that's giving me pause about having too much of it be the school to get people to do the kids along with them angle is they've used that a lot to tenderize his gruffness and all this kind of jazz. I like to see a new interpretation of how he can get down with his spy skills, his intense past, the people who are coming after the unkillable monster man, the Baba. He's a real Baba Yaga, the John Wickian Wolverine. Maybe I'd like to see something along those lines. And then maybe he ends up with kids in school and stuff or something like that.
And the later franchises.
Or it ends up maybe even as the equilibrium at the end of this movie.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Him stumbling up onto the Xavier's lawn after a John Wick adventure in this movie. I'd settle for that.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, as to maybe the whole movie doesn't revolve around that, but we know that's the hint, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Interesting. I would ask, as a fundamental ground rule, before we get into really breaking this thing, are we in the MCU? Because now that Disney owns Fox, and now that we know that plans are afoot to introduce mutants, does our Wolverine become the opening salvo of mutants in the MCU?
I think he should be, and I'll tell you why. When you think about every MCU character, they are a hero, but they're also something else. It's like Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he's also a high school student. Black Panther is a hero, but he's also a politician by the way he has to be. There's not one just I am 100% badass fighter, and that's all I do. That's all I am. And I think
the cowboy,
right? That's the one ingredient so far. Man, you think wow, everything has been touched in the MCU, except they don't have that one archetype in their whole roster right now. And I think that's why it's that actually that fills a need that's not there right now.
Interesting.
And a badass that causes destruction at the same time.
Right. Now that Hulk is kind of, smart Hulk, we kind of miss out on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, before we start breaking this story, we're going to open it up to you in the audience. Guys, what do you need to see? What is on your checklist if you were our boss? What has to be in this movie?
Okay. I would like to see him run into some sort of Hulk, or maybe a hint of him running into the Hulk, or maybe some history of him with the Hulk, because he did appear in issue 181 of the Hulk.
That's actually a great point. I mean, that's a great point. Wolverine was introduced as a nemesis of the Hulk. Could we do something similar to that?
I want to see him fight a polar bear.
We're going to ignore this fan. No, I mean,
But not with his claws,
I definitely
with his
think
bare fists like a man.
I think what the MCU does really well, and if we put this into the MCU, they're very good at homaging things without being slavish to actually having to adhere directly to it. Do I think that there can be references to a scuffle or even like recreating that cover, but it's not necessarily the Hulk, it's something else? I think so, but I don't know. I would have a tough time reconciling this version of Wolverine with Smart Hulk unless we went in the past and this was like a little side adventure like Black Widow's going to be, where it's maybe a Hulk from 5 years ago before he becomes that.
well, guys, I think that's a great segue into our first real question here. What story are we telling? And the reason I think that's a great segue is if we are talking about Wolverine as the entree into MCU mutants, and we're talking about, all right, maybe he needs to have a confrontation with the Hulk, I think making this a period piece could be really, really interesting. I think fitting Wolverine in telling a Wolverine story in his pre-X-Men days, maybe ending at Xavier's mansion, literally introducing the X-Men at the end of this movie, but fitting this into the history of the MCU could be interesting. The only problem there becomes they did it with Captain Marvel, and so are we just sort of retreading ground that's already been trodden? So this is the question I open up to the panel. What story are we telling here? What is this franchise really all about?
I mean, my funny idea is now we make it early 2000s, just real music.
Wolverine getting down to Creed?
Yeah.
Can you take me high? As he throws someone off a building.
And when he rips somebody apart from the inside, he goes, "With eyes wide open," he's ripping them open.
And he's singing Linkin Park.
Well, maybe the way to approach this question is, what do you think the character of Wolverine is all about? Like, let's get down to brass tacks here. What does this character bring to an audience? Where do we want to start him? Where do we want to see him end up?
I think to your point, Ed, and I think this is where you can start with him, is I think, again, the MCU is very good at taking ideas from and not having to adhere directly to a storyline. But I think you use the Frank Miller run of Wolverine as your Bible. That is your blueprint. That's your starting point. Okay. And I love that idea that you said of like, what if this version of Wolverine is like the John Wick of the MCU when we start and we see him?
Yeah, I would say along with him being like John Wick, that's really cool. I think we'd have to. It is about someone with history. You know what I mean?
Right,
I think us emphasizing, just like in John Wick, that this is someone with history. I think that's an important thing. If we're going to craft a story, we're crafting the story of someone with a long, rich history that can weave all throughout the Marvel universe if we want it to. Yeah. Or just be a hint at so many ways we could insert him in different movies and different franchises, even because Wolverine is that character.
But I think that's a fun way too of like, if you go into this as not thinking that every audience member knows everything about Wolverine at this point, you kind of set the slate blank. I think it's kind of fun to weave that in. Like, we kind of discover as this narrative goes along, like, this guy's not really good because he's just that good. It's like, he's been around for like 100 years, all these different wars, and like, kind of like, how did you learn that? Or how'd you get that? That's been gone for 50 years. Is like, I think adding that layer of mystery, we know that he's immortal, but finding out the discovery, I think, is a new fun way to do it.
Well, in the comics, he's always been the man with no name, right? Like I mean, if you want to get down to the very core of Wolverine and why that character became one of the big three at Marvel, it was that mystery. It was the fact that, like, he's the best he is at what he does, but you don't know exactly why. Like, he always there was something so mysterious and like the coolest way about, like, what's his, like, why is he the way that he is? Like, he has so much hidden history. This almost makes me feel like we should do Memento with Wolverine, where we're telling a story backward through his life.
Dude, you're in my brain. Are you Emma Frost?
I think so.
Because straight up,
Charles Xavier.
But that thing about we could move anywhere in time we wanted to and motivate it, because he's been living so long and he's done so many different things. So anywhere in time we want to slide, body slide by 6. We could go there.
And this also adds to the thing that I really like about Wolverine is his constant struggle with thinking of himself as a kind human person, like as a regular human person, because he also feels like this crazed animal all the time, right?
I think that's the heart of the movie. I think you hit it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the mystery of why he is like that becomes the movie, right? Because you're going back and finding all the cool skills that he has, but you're also finding why he is who he is, right? Is that
and
maybe?
I think that's where you
I
can
get that. I
slot
dig that.
in some of the like, look, you're not going to get Chris Evans back for a whole movie, but could you do a World War II scene? It's like, how do I know this guy? Why does it look familiar? It's like, 'cause you fought with him and you didn't even realize it.
We're on to something here. Like, there's something amazing about getting cameos like from all the original Avengers, right? And literally telling a story from World War II through the 60s,
Dude.
through like early Bruce Banner Hulk, through Michael Douglas Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I mean, all of it. That's amazing.
Dude, everybody loved one of the only parts that I personally loved about that one with Liev Schreiber playing Sabretooth.
Origins, yeah.
X-Men Origins. That opening where they're fighting in the World War, they're fighting in World War I and World War II and this and that and the other, and they're buddies through historic events that they survive because they're immortals, and how it bonded them. Well, imagine all the different enemies that you can have in that same way. Enemies for life, and a life that is long.
Holy
as
Wait. I'm going to drop a bomb right now. Do we structure this movie like the Kaiser Soze story? And the whole movie is framed with like S.H.I.E.L.D. or somebody trying to figure out who Wolverine is. And every time they get a new piece of evidence, we're slotting him more and more into the Marvel history so that you have that audience surrogate that's going, holy shit, he was there too? You know what I mean? And we're getting all these pieces.
I gotta say, that sounds like a nice spine.
Yeah,
that
send
sounds
him
like a
into
nice spine.
Yeah, I think
They send him into Avengers.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like it's maybe our main focus is that S.H.I.E.L.D. agent or someone. It's like we have to track down this assassin. Like, you're not going to believe this. This goes back.
That's
like,
so cool.
How is that possible?
And
you know?
and just not to get too deep in the weeds as far as story, but the whole thing of like, there's pockets of people just chop the hell up and different stuff like that all throughout history. All these marks,
claws
these
that
things,
are cut through.
these different indicators, like it's encrypted almost.
Guys, okay, movie opens at a busted up experimental base, right? And some S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, whether it's actually Nick Fury, Maria Hill, or whatever, walk in, and there's the claw marks on the walls, and they say, this is a secret extension of the Super Soldier program. This is like the facility in Siberia from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but it's in Canada. What the hell happened here? Right? It's the aftermath of Wolverine's escape. It's what the hell happened here. Yep. Maybe at the end of Act 1 they catch him and we can get into this. But I just think that like using the aftermath of his escape as the catalyst to like put together who is this guy could just be super killer.
I'm definitely make it a mystery. And again, maybe the audience knows, you know, we know like the beats of the comic books, but I think the fun in it is like finding out how it's incorporated in the larger MCU while still hitting on the emotional themes of like, how did this thing become like from a man to a thing, and can he come back, you know?
Yeah. You could even, in between the flashbacks, you could even have the present day story almost a little Silence of the Lambs-y, where it's like if they catch him and they've got him contained, and at first they think he's literally like a man beast or some kind of monster, but then they slowly build a rapport where it's like somebody goes in to talk to him and suddenly it's like, oh, he can talk. Oh, not only can he talk, like he's fairly intelligent. And then it's like, it's all, I think that mystery movie structure, almost like Inside Man. You know what I mean? The Spike Lee movie where it's like you're sort of piecing this story together from a couple different perspectives and you're never quite sure what's going on. I feel like there's something to that. And that could be really juicy.
I mean, I don't know if we're going into this at that point, but and then at some point he kind of reveals like what he's been doing, which is hunting some main bad guy. Right.
I was just about to say like, and there's got to be some antagonist.
Like, you don't know what you guys are doing.
Exactly.
You're in danger right now. I gotta let me out of this.
Well, but and
that Sabretooth, like he can be the source of a lot of the clawing.
It could also.
Oh,
I was going to say too. It could and should be Sabretooth, but you could also like slot in other Weapon Plus program monsters, right? I mean, you could have Omega Red theoretically.
Sure,
you could have Cyber. You could really pack in a lot lot of
You
Marvel.
could even throw in one. Well, of course, this isn't like you could throw in one Deadpool reference too.
That's interesting.
Bill and I are like,
I know it doesn't match. It doesn't match the mood we're doing, but it could be a very funny. It could be a very funny thing.
I'm like, I'm good if you don't, though. If you forgot.
Well, dude, okay, but this is my thing as far as well, if you don't, the building upon these ideas.
Sure.
The Weapon X thing gives me a little squirrelies because I do believe we've seen inferior versions to what you guys are pitching.
True.
Of the Weapon X program. So I might propose, what if we kind of shifted it to like, yes, it does have that historical quality and we're tracking this guy throughout history thing and the shield agent stuff. I love that. But maybe the inciting incident isn't so much him breaking out of the Weapon X thing as to that's one of the things we'll find. We go back to the Weapon X place and it's all broke off and it's all messed up. And there's like other Weapon X guys who turned on him to try to keep him inside and they're dead. Like super soldiers are dead in this thing's wake. Sort of scene that we could dig up later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
something like that.
That could fit into the structure of like him trying to chase down other Weapon X things. If it's like a second act, end of second act reveal, like, oh, this is where this all happened.
And the part where he gets
like
captured, I think the part where he gets captured, we could put that a lot of different places in the story. We're not telling the story like on that level yet, but a lot of different places in the story, we could have him get sort of captured up by these dudes who think that they're interrogating him. But of course, he's interrogating them. And when he decides to leave, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And he's Audi 5000. And we have a great scene of that happening, however we choose to show that.
Well, this is the right time for the door to fling open. Guys, it's John Peters.
No!
He's storming in.
We were doing so good.
No way, John.
John Peters. Oh, man, he's hyped up. He's hyped up.
Oh no!
Guys, this is John Peters. Guys, the movie is good, but it's not as good as it could be. Okay.
Okay.
This movie needs an X factor. Do you get the pun?
What do we got to do to get that green light,
Yeah,
John?
we do.
Okay, so the John Peters audience suggestion is this: I need to see Wolverine fight an entire pack of wolves like Liam Neeson at the end of The Gray. I want to see the fight. See, the people's biggest disappointment was that we didn't see the fight. I want to see the fight. Gentlemen, put that in the movie. We're going to make $1 billion. Go.
Okay. Okay, you guys. I think we can actually make this work.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Because when he's going through his moment of am I more than a beast or not, and he's out in the forest, and a pack of wolves try to hunt him, and then he, instead of maybe fighting all of them, what if he f***ed up a couple of them, but he kills the main pack guy, like the one that's in charge,
the alpha, yeah,
the alpha, and sort of for the night becomes the alpha himself.
Oh, it's like a Dark Knight Returns moment
I
where
know
he kills
that's
the
not the
mutant leader.
greatest thing in the world.
No.
But we got to work with this crazy ass.
And wait a minute. Peter said he had to fight a pack of wolves. He didn't say he had to kill them.
That's true.
So he smacks up the alpha, and the alpha bows to Wolverine, and Wolverine becomes the alpha of that pack, and they all fall in line, and he like kills something big, and they all eat of it, and it's a great heartwarming
Beautiful.
scene.
That's the way to do it.
I mean, I would actually cheer if he like stuck like a grizzly bear or something, and then he walks away, and then they just start tearing at it. Like that'd be pretty dope.
I mean, that could be an amazing save the cat moment where it's like you build this guy up as being like the most vicious, brutal, inhuman killer, but then he's attacked by wolves and he refuses to kill the wolves.
Dude, he refused to kill the wolves because he sees their bones, brother. These guys haven't had a good meal in weeks. These guys, they're desperate. That's the only reason why they try to track something as dangerous as me, or whatever the hell he says. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why they attacked them, because they're desperate and they're out there and they're, you know what I'm saying, they're lonely and they're hungry.
If they had just done this with the raptors in Jurassic World, maybe it would have turned the whole ship around.
Just give them some steaks. Kick it with them, you know?
Punch the raptor and be like, guys, I know you're hungry. It's not me. I don't take it personally.
Yeah, dude.
No, I think that could actually work. I think, and then that still thematically fits with maybe that's what he comes to. He's like, I am an animal, but I'm also a man. I'm also a human. And that's kind of like that moment where it's like, you know, I'm Batman, not because I have to be, because I choose to be. That's like his moment.
And if we want to find a reason why anybody would ever know that scene, then maybe, we talked to all sorts of people about this guy. I got a hit on this guy, you know where? Nova Scotia, a animal tracker that puts those trackers in wolves and stuff.
Yeah.
Had some weird thing about like, there was a wolf pack, looked like they were going to die. Then all of a sudden they got a protein injection and now these dudes are living well. How the hell did that happen? I think it's the Wolverine. Are you sure? That's dumb. And it's like, boom. You know?
But I do like the idea of like that perpetuating this, like they did a little bit with Winter Soldier, but I think you could take it even further of like this urban legend.
Dude.
Yes.
Give me a legendary. And the thing is, I believe throughout this movie, he has many names and he will earn the one by the end. I think that's a big thing we could play with.
Logan,
Well,
Patch.
let's get into some specifics here. So I think the first thing we need to do is who is the villain. But the second thing that we need to do is kind of figure out, I want us to at least figure out the act structure, because we're talking about a little bit of a complicated story. But what I really want to know is like, when do we actually meet Wolverine in real time, right? And then who is our other protagonist? Because if we want to keep the mystery around Wolverine, we got to be judicious in how we deploy him. Who's the investigator? Who's going after him?
I mean, the obvious one that makes it sellable and also pretty cool is Nick Fury.
I don't know. Here's my thought on that. I think that I see this movie, and maybe you agree or disagree, I see this movie like a little bit more of an intense, serious tone than maybe the MCU goes for. And I feel like Sam Jackson like inevitably kind of brings levity to it because he's Sam Jackson. Please, you've been to space. So I would almost take it as like a brand new character, a new agent that we haven't seen, that we can start with, like maybe an up and comer. And because Wolverine is going to be the star of this movie, not the agent. That it's like the first Hellboy movie where it's like, I don't care who this agent is, but he's my gateway into learning about Hellboy and all the others.
And I love that idea for multiple reasons, because when you do something like that, then you're also adding to for Disney, who loves to do spin-offs, if that character is an interesting character within the movie, then you get extra spin-offs from that character,
from that
as,
agent,
as an agent.
Right. Yes, I agree with that.
So I love that idea.
Yeah, I think they should be pretty integral, but I think there is a way we can do it to where we have a character hunting him and a little bit of like us knowing certain things about him that maybe we don't know even as much as the agent who's chasing him knows, but we see him do something that we don't quite understand. You get what I'm saying? Like we could chill with Wolverine a little bit doing stuff, because like we're talking about, I think a little bit of the flavor of this as well is a little bit of that enemy of the state thing, where Wolverine is going throughout like the present time of superheroes and gods and everything and stuff up, and they're like, why are these things happening? And he's got his own agenda that we're not privy to. But he doesn't sit around talking to us, the audience, about it. We see certain things we don't even understand, and the agent's on his case.
So I'm going to put my producer hat on for a second, and I think realistically, if we're going to do this movie, because the scope of the flashbacks are so huge, I think it's going to be important for an audience that whatever our present day action is, stay pretty contained. And I'm not saying like it needs to be in one location, but I think the story of whatever's happening in the present day needs to be a little bit linear and streamlined. And by that, I mean, it needs to be like, we're chasing Wolverine, we find Wolverine, there's an interrogation, he escapes, and we confront the main bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it needs that sort of a
and I think
streamline.
To fit in that, kind of what I was trying to say earlier is like maybe a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who worked at Weapon X or whatever we're going to call it, and for the purposes, are being brutalized by this monster, and they're ripped apart, and they're convinced that it's this one specimen, the Wolverine that broke out, and then they capture him finally or whatever, and we find out later it's actually Sabretooth who's going and killing him. It's a little bit of what they did in Origins, but at least like that's a framework that makes sense, is like who's taking out the S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well,
agents.
how can we zazz this up? How can we zhuzh this, as we say in the business? I agree with you. I'm hesitant about Sabretooth. I'm hesitant about Sabretooth because we've seen two versions of him already in the movies. He's the most expected choice. And at the end of the day, he's not necessarily a riveting character. Right, I get that he has the bad blood with Wolverine, but that almost feels like you could do a little something like they did with the Dark Knight, where it's like you introduce, the mirrored ultimate antagonist in the sequel. So I'm wondering, who could be setting up Wolverine and why, or conversely, who could this other monster be?
I have a really left
two.
field choice.
I got one too, but go ahead.
My left field choice is like, look, if you really want to get kind of weird with this thing, there's a guy in S.H.I.E.L.D. who's like obsessed with finding him, and he's setting up ways that like almost framing Wolverine because he wants to catch him. Maybe we find out later it's Kraven.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's like Bolivar Trask
That
or
is
somebody.
out of the
I was
blue,
gonna go
but
like,
that is interesting.
Craven needs to use S.H.I.E.L.D. resources.
Because I was going to go with Viper. Miss Hydra or
Oh yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. See. But
Because
no, I like where you guys are going. in
badass
regards
woman
to-
villain, or Omega Red is the other guy. Just because if nothing else, nobody else could take out Omega Red besides Wolverine.
Well, I think that if you're dealing with Omega Red, I think first of all you make Omega Red big in like the Russian now, like he's a big muckety muck in their super soldier program of right now. And that impacts upon the greater Marvel universe and impacts upon like mutants, certain sort of mutants being threats down the line. And if you want to do that, I just feel like just boil it down to another immortal. I like where you're going with this Sabretooth thing. It's another immortal. It's two immortals meeting each other at the end. You know what I mean? Or two immortal soldiers, two eternal warriors meeting each other at the end for a big bloodbath. Because some of this, him just fighting everybody stuff, it sounds cool until we actually try to execute it. We got to put two faces on posters.
Sure, agreed.
I totally agree with that. I just wonder if there's that feels like Highlander, right? And I don't know that the rest of the movie is Highlander. I don't know that the rest of the movie of the movie is. It feels like it should be some sort of a conspiracy thing. It feels like it should be.
That's kind of why I like Viper, because like doesn't really have superpowers, but she's part of a vast criminal organization, and she's a badass.
Well, the bigness of some of the stuff he did, I just think, what if it's sort of a cabal of different people across, like a sort of a club of people,
A Hellfire Club?
I know I didn't want to say that, but
you know what I mean? He's like done so much over the course of time, and an organization dedicated to like him up by any means necessary. I mean, it's Wiccan as well.
My only counterpoint to that would be, what if you have sort of an anti-mutant faction of S.H.I.E.L.D. that like has been quietly trying to eliminate the rising mutant threat for years and years, and like this movie kind of brings that to a head in a weird way, right? So it like I said earlier, maybe the person hunting Wolverine is Bolivar Trask, who like goes on to found the Sentinel program.
I mean, that's nice, and it has shieldy sort of stuff. I mean, we can manipulate it to where it's like, yeah, he rose up just for this goal, which is what Bolivar Trask did. Yeah,
I mean, you could also you could use Sabretooth in the movie as like you almost do it like
he always is.
Well, I was gonna say it could be like a Bane Talia thing from The Dark Knight Rises, which I know has, some negative connotations, but if Wolverine and Sabretooth end up together in a cell or something at the end of the second act, and there is this bloody, brutal battle, but then it ends with Sabretooth saying something or tipping off that like he too has been set up. And Wolverine then realizes like, okay, this guy is my mortal enemy, but there's a bigger, worse threat out there. And I'm not even saying don't make it a buddy team up thing. You could leave Sabretooth bleeding and dying on the floor, but then Wolverine realizes like, I've been played.
Well, only thing I'm saying is I do believe two things. I think this movie would be the best it can be if he's the only feral character. Because we got to understand this virality without having all these mirror characters.
It's an interesting point.
You know what I mean? He is a person who can occupy a human space, but by the end of it, we're calling him the Wolverine with a straight face because we've seen him as a small guy up some big stuff towards the end.
I kind of like the idea, like marrying the two of like Bolivar Trask is actually very high up in S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's like kind of like insisting on this manhunt, maybe even making up like he'll commit an atrocity and attribute it to Wolverine in order to, you know, that's maybe like the last mutant on his checklist. Because I like the idea. I mean, it recycles a little bit of like S.H.I.E.L.D. can't be trusted again, but I do like this idea of like a real prejudice from an authoritarian figure, because I think that's at the core, like some real X-Men stuff. And maybe it doesn't even end with, I think you're right, like maybe it is like a Talia thing where like Trask is not, you know, Emperor Palpatine. He's not kicked out of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not even figured out that this is his plan, so that we can continue with, like, you know, it's going to get worse. Yes, you defeated Trask's first task in this movie, but you know those Sentinels are coming down the road.
Well, I think now is the time. We could figure out some of the finer details later. Who are we going to cast in this movie?
Oh, boy.
And I think part of this discussion ends up becoming some of the supporting characters. But I mean, the big one up top, who is Logan? And then working our way down from there, who do we want our shield agent to be? And then what cameos are we going to see in all this fun time hopping that we're doing?
Wow.
I'm going to do it right up top.
Please, if you have a suggestion.
I don't think there is a better choice for Wolverine among famous actors currently working than Tom Hardy. And it's super problematic because he is Venom. But Tom Hardy would be the most unbelievable Wolverine you've ever seen. And he could actually play his real height. I mean, the guy is actually about 5'9". He is a small, jacked up, feral looking man.
Yeah.
And I think they should lean into that. I think they should lean into the smallness. To me, that's the perfect Wolverine.
How old is Scott Kane?
Scott Conn?
Conn.
He's up there.
I think he's in his 40s. Yeah.
Is that too old for Wolverine?
I don't like Scott Conn.
Yeah, is he the right? I mean, he might
Just
looks
like him.
He looks
Yeah,
like
but he's such
Johnny
a dude.
Bravo.
All right, I
too.
changed my mind. Peter Dinklage.
Hey, don't laugh at that. Well, actually, he already played Trask.
That's true. That's
He's
true.
got
He
some
did.
X-Men ties to him. I don't know. Like, it's tough because, like, putting on my producer hat, it's like, is Wolverine on the marquee enough to sell this movie? Meaning, do I have to go after a name? Can I do like remember Chris Hemsworth had like 30 seconds of screen time in Star Trek before he did Thor. They were rolling the dice on Thor and the MCU more than they were the actor. So it's like, do we just go out and pluck the right person that fits it rather than trying to hope that someone that's already famous fits the bill?
I don't mind that. I don't mind that thought. I mean, I think there's definitely something interesting to a Wolverine story where you're introduced. You know, you could market like we did an exhaustive casting search. You know, it's that Christopher Reeve thing. Like we had to find the exact right person, and so we auditioned everybody, and so we're introducing this guy. But if you do that, then who is the name on the marquee?
I think that's where you can either have like the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent or whoever your antagonist is. Plus, at this point, like if you can throw in some of the other Marvel staples, even if in supporting roles,
It'll pull people in. It'll be like
yeah.
a Tom Holland. I mean, obviously, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, so whoever you got to play Spider-Man didn't matter that much.
When they announced Tom Holland, we're like, who?
is
And
that?
now he's international.
But also, so maybe we cast villain first in this instance, so we could see somebody.
So who did we decide? We decided the agent is the villain, basically, and Sabretooth.
Like Trask.
Well, no,
or Sabretooth.
Basically somebody in S.H.I.E.L.D., basically Trask, and some amalgamation of Trask and guys like
Stryker.
Henry Gyrich that used to hang out with the X. Basically some liaison, supposedly mutant liaison type of person. And you know how, S.H.I.E.L.D. usually liaisons with threats. They liaise your ass. Those lasers on your ass.
We got to have one. It is important to have one big fight scene, right? I mean, that's necessary, right?
Well, I mean, in the structure that we're talking about, going back to our audience suggestion from the beginning, we could literally have a fight scene with the Hulk. I mean, if we're talking about a character that has been around since World War I, and we're flashing back to these moments of just unbelievable, like, wait, he was there?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but we can load the action scenes in, like, basically last at any place. They are.
Well,
when we build the
we
story
can,
structure,
but we need
drop
to
them
have
in
a character. The reason I'm asking is if we're going to have, he can't fight whoever plays Trask.
Sure, yeah.
That'll be a waste of his talent.
I agree with that.
Is what I'm saying. So if our main bad guy is sure, we can have somebody playing Trask, yeah, that's fine. But then we have to have him fight somebody. So who is Trask going to be sending after him?
Let's grab the names and shake them out, because we got Omega Red could theoretically beat Wolverine, and he has long distance stuff. My only quibble with that is I really don't like tendrils. Tendrils weird me out. They're not that cool to me as far as like a way to fight somebody. Anybody with tendrils was pretty whack to me. There is a guy named Cyber who in the comics had adamantium skin. That's stupid, but
I like Cyber. Dude.
Okay,
Cyber.
But something like that where it's like it isn't quite adamantium skin, because I don't know how you beat somebody with adamantium skin. I mean, I guess he drowned him or some weird stuff. But the bottom line is something that's an advantage because he's a good boy who got this upgrade and he's better technologically than our boy. But our boy ain't about technology. He's an elemental force.
I also think there's an opportunity here to not use an expected Wolverine villain. I think number one, because that whole idea of like sending other weapon plus agents after him has been kind of a staple in some of these Wolverine movies, all the way up to Logan, right? And number two, we want to integrate him into the MCU. Like, can we send, is there an MCU? Do we bring the Abomination back? And they're sending the Abomination, who's been like captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. ever since Incredible Hulk, after Wolverine, and then you get your Hulk Wolverine fight?
That's pretty cool. And like they've been trying to think how to bring Abomination back out again.
Tim Roth plays him. Who doesn't want more Tim Roth in your life?
Yeah, I like that.
I think I broke Ed's brain.
Yeah, I think I like that idea too. I think that's
so awesome.
And it's great because then immediately I get it. I'm like, Abomination is muscle, and then there's someone else like with the brains pulling the strings. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
totally.
And then we have our big fight scene that you're going to need in a Wolverine or any good action film between two bad guys. And
and he's going to be able to talk some stuff to Blonsky, because Blonsky's been an agent for years. And guess who's had run-ins with the Wolverine before at some point in his being an agent, being the super agent you send after things like the Hulk.
Right.
He's going to have run across the trail of Wolverine. He's going to be like, I remember you when you were a little punk, the Reservoir Dogs looking dude. I remember you, dude.
Man, if we could get like a de-transformation scene from the Abomination back to like a real effed up looking Blonsky, and then think of the intensity Tim Roth would bring to that conversation of just, I remember you.
We've already just rebooked Tim Roth as Abomination then.
And I think that's great.
I think that's hot, and it goes with the government. It goes with the agent. It goes with him beating the Hulk thing.
If we're doing this, let's bring back Tim Blake Nelson as the leader too. While we're doing it, Tim Blake Nelson could be a red herring villain. You just throw him in there as just something, he's part of the scheme or whatnot. I don't know. Just an idea.
I think perhaps the leader is another one of the things that has been, because the ticket, I think they got some kind of gamma base place. And this is the thing, guys. I think we have to have Wolverine. First of all, he hangs with them as sort of a Hulk versus Wolverine thing. He hangs with them for a long time, but they're fighting inside the gamma base thing or something. There's something in there that, bottom line is, where do you hold Abomination? How could you physically hold an Abomination unless you had some way to damper his powers? Unless you had some way to damper his powers, you could not hold him anywhere. So I propose that they took him down to a place that could kind of Superman 2, take his powers away or fuck him up. And that is where we end up, where Wolverine outsmarts him, gets him into a situation like that, gets his powers taken down. I remember you, Blonsky. You ain't guts him as him. And he gets to say some good lines as Tim Roth, but gets gutted. And then he goes to get Trask or whatever. I can see something like that happening.
Like going into the third act?
Yeah.
So let me ask, as long as we're talking cast, and now we're going to start getting into some set pieces as well, which is really fun. Does Wolverine need one or two people that one or two supporting characters, right? Because I think my only concern here is that once you have the handoff from whoever our agent is to Wolverine, is it just Wolverine and that agent? What role does that agent play moving ahead? So I only bring this up to ask, are there other X-Men characters we want to put in this movie? Are there other people from Wolverine's history that we want to introduce?
Obviously Dazzler.
I would say,
dude, the disco era scene. He's like, I don't feel good in these leisure suits.
Well, I'm talking modern age, because I think those flashbacks, we we literally try to get all the original Avengers back for one scene for those flashbacks. I think that's amazing.
I would say no to other X-Men specifically. I love the idea of like the X-Men is like your Thanos tease at the end of the movie. But I definitely think that there could be, I don't know, I like this. I think that this SHIELD agent could be a good bridge to like not all of us are terrible people. Like you can trust someone. So I would probably put a lot of stock in that
that relationship.
Yeah. If you're going to use anybody, use someone from like Wolverine's past, but I wouldn't do another like mutant.
What if Trask, whoever plays Trask, is a female instead of a dude?
Bolivar Trask.
Sure.
I'm down.
Yeah, why not?
That's a great way to.
I think that's great. Yeah, and dude, and to come from a long line of assholes, like the Ivanka Trump of being a rich asshole with all this money and dumping it into these Sentinel programs, which were to take out. She thought maybe they were to take out metahumans, and she finds out about mutants, and it's just like, oh hell nah. No, we got aliens and all this. No.
Well,
I know something I can control, and it's this.
I think it's definitely like whoever the SHIELD agent is, or sorry, whoever this Trask, male or female, it's very much the Lex Luthor thing. Like they are so sick of SHIELD and Nick Fury depending on all these weirdos. It's like we are the most highly trained, well-equipped people on Earth, and you guys keep going to these crazy people and a little bit Civil War. Like look at all this damage. Look at what you know. Everyone's now 5 years. Everything's all screwed up. Enough is enough. And I think like someone, I don't know. That's where for Trask, that's where I would go for the heavy hitter. I'm talking like, go for like Helen Mirren. Go for like Meryl Streep.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Was something
Nice.
like that. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Well, and so I'm gonna last question on the
Helen
casting.
Mirren,
Last question on the casting then. Do we make this the good SHIELD agent, our lead, do we make that a woman? Because then I think there's also the opportunity for some sparks, a little bit of romance, and we are still making a 4-quadrant movie here. Or maybe not, it is R-rated. But I think that's important. And so can we pick a name for a leading lady who we could put on the marquee who's going to be Logan's pursuer? I mean, it's basically Logan's Clarice Starling. Pursuer turned ally. Who is that person?
It's tough because I feel like by the nature of the story of him just coming to grips with his own humanity, like the romance might feel forced.
Is it weird to be Agent Hill?
I was thinking about that.
I don't think it is weird. And so this was my I think romance might be too strong a word, because I was thinking along the same lines you are, Billy, of it's not so much like sparks, like sexual chemistry. I mean, maybe it's sexual
just like
chemistry.
a human connection.
It's that human. It's the fact that everybody starts this movie thinking that they're pursuing literally a horror movie monster, and she validates. He proves himself to her, and she becomes that validation of like, oh, you're a man, and not only are you a man, you're a good man.
Right.
You know that. Seeing
And
that
maybe
change in her,
she
could be
has
interesting.
her doubts the whole time, and is also maybe searching out, like, because she's so well known for finding trouble within SHIELD, it would make sense for her to be even seeking out Trask as not necessarily Trask, but knowing that there's some agent doing something a little bit off in SHIELD.
I'd be down to give Maria Hill some like she's always solid, but she has nothing to do except like whatever Nick Fury tells her to do. So I'd be fine with finally getting to see like who is this person, because we know in the comics Maria Hill becomes a very big deal. So this could be a great little
And this could be part of what she's doing on Earth if she's not in space with Nick Fury. If we were to care about the continuity at all, we could still have her doing a very important job on Earth, which is identifying a brand new threat that is terrestrial. It is the remnants, like the First Order of it's like the First Order-esque splinter group of SHIELD / the CIA or whatever. They've made a cabal of people who know about mutant stuff, know about all these access to these weird technologies and stuff, want to use their access to these dark arts to defeat mutants and get them clandestinely wiped out, and then move on to other threats like all the rest of the superhumans.
I'm sold on Maria Hill finally giving her a movie.
Yeah.
I think it works.
Okay.
Well then, guys, here comes our next batch of fun questions. Who's directing? Who's shooting? Who's designing? What's our crew look like? What do we want this movie to look and feel like?
Well, obviously you're directing.
I'll take it. I'll take the job. I mean, look, I'll say this. It's hard for me to not imagine, especially a movie in which Wolverine is going to fight a pack of wolves. It's hard for me to imagine this not being shot by the DP from The Revenant, whose name I should be able to recall, and I don't know why.
It's so tough because like the MCU, as much as I love it, they have a very manufactured look. So
Yeah.
where it's like you can watch an MCU movie and you can walk in and you don't even know what's on the TV, but you know it's an MCU movie just aesthetically.
Yeah.
So to jump away from that would be tough. But I like what you're thinking. Like, it would be nice if I know like humor is very much a part of these movies, but like there are movies like Winter Soldier where like the humor's way dialed down. I think like this Wolverine thing becomes a little bit more like, to use again as a comparison, your John Wick. Yes, there's some levity here and there, but ultimately like this is more, I don't want to call it prestige, but it is a little bit more serious. It is a little bit more intense.
Do you go after David Leitch? Do you go after
You go after Chad Stahelski,
Chad Stahelski? That's
who is the good one. David Leitch did Hobbs and Shaw, and there is a qualitative
that's right.
difference between David Leitch and Chad Stahelski.
What does David Leitch do?
John Wick.
Yeah, but he did Deadpool 2 and
You guys know I don't know.
Well, no, David Leitch and
Directors.
Stahelski got together and did John Wick.
Okay.
And then the other two John Wicks are directed by Chad, whereas David Leitch was like Deadpool 2 and
Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
one thing that comes to mind for me is this feels like the opportunity for Marvel to take a big swing with director. And one of the things that I loved is that they pulled the Russo brothers out of like comedy television directing, and now those guys have directed the biggest blockbuster there ever was. So part of me wants to look at like who's doing real grimy indie movies right now.
Obviously Kevin Smith.
I'm a little on your wavelength, maybe a hair of a frequency off, but I was just thinking it's like, all right, you want to do something really crazy. Like, to me, it's still bonkers that Kenneth Branagh did a Thor movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, what if you gave it to like Alfonso Cuarón?
Yeah, man. I mean, I referenced The Revenant. Alejandro Iñárritu could do a hell of a Wolverine movie. I don't know. It might be slow and ponderous, but I don't know.
I think with a script that moves like a rocket, Iñárritu would be good. If we give him a chance to boring it up, he's going to.
Let me throw another name out at you guys. The Safdie brothers. The Safdie brothers directed Good Time, which was like the movie.
Great. Robert Pattinson.
That convinced people Robert Pattinson is actually an amazing dramatic actor. After he'd been trying to do it with a bunch of indie movies, that was the movie that turned it around. The Safdie brothers are two brothers out of New York who have been making just the lowest budget, grimiest, dirtiest, but most kinetic and awesome little movies with like a crew of 8 of their friends. And they've been on the cusp of like, their movies keep getting better. Every movie they make keeps getting bigger stars, more notoriety. To me, they're in that Marvel sweet spot. I feel like that could be interesting.
Do you know who did Upgrade?
Oh, I don't.
Oh,
but
hell
that's
yeah.
that's a cool idea too.
Yeah, I think if you take the frenetic energy of Upgrade, and sorry, I don't know what his name is, but I think like that's, to me, like they're definitely the way some of those action sequences are shot in that movie. Like I could definitely like plop in Wolverine with that perspective, you know?
Yeah, no.
Lee Whannell?
Lee Whannell, yeah. He
he did a lot of cool shit.
He did like a lot of Saw. Yeah,
he started doing
Insidious.
Saw movies.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of the Blumhouse staples of horror. I definitely think that
That's a great idea.
And guys, I mean,
Wolverine being scary actually makes a lot of sense.
lay one all. Yeah,
and horror directors have a great track record transitioning to blockbusters.
Yes.
They just do the same talent for creating suspense and setup and payoff. It works.
Yeah, and I'd also say like this guy, and also with a little eye towards some of the stuff. There's a guy, Robert Eggers, who's getting really big.
We're all in Cell Block 99.
Is that what it is? I'm sorry.
Bone Tomahawk.
Oh yeah.
And also he did The Witch. This guy I'm talking about did the witch.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
I was thinking of a different guy, but we could also talk about him.
But
yeah.
no. Well, bottom line is, whoever does it, let's say it's Leigh Whannell. One of the great things about Leigh Whannell is he knows how to show the effects of something. And we're talking about the leavings, the detritus, the trail.
Yeah.
Of someone.
Definitely.
He knows how to intone that. So and for a budget, so that we can spend our abomination money.
Yeah, buddy.
So I can see that.
Yeah, that could be interesting. The name I was thinking of, and we don't need to go down this road, is actually S. Craig Zoller. S. Craig Zoller directed Brawl in Cell Block 99, which convinced everybody that Vince Vaughn could play a convincing badass.
Great movie.
Directed Bone Tomahawk, in which Kurt Russell played a very convincing badass and could be the most amazing 80-year-old Wolverine you've ever seen. And then directed a movie called Dragged Across Concrete, which everything you need to know about it is in the name. To me,
Producer hat on though. I think he may have some James Gunn-esque statements that could be tough to get past the board. So I think my vote still goes to Leigh Whannell.
I'm down with Leigh Whannell.
I'm down with that too.
And Leigh not only has a foundation in directing, but in screenwriting as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
if there's any story issues and stuff, I feel like he'll get his screenplay credit by hook or crook.
Well, guys, we have the bones of a movie here. We've got Wolverine with a grizzled unknown as the monster that they're chasing for the first half of the movie. We've got him popping in as new evidence is discovered to key moments in MCU history, giving us an opportunity for amazing cameos from characters who might be dead and characters we've always wanted to see. We've got Tim Roth returning as the Abomination, as the weapon that they are deploying to catch this monster.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing.
Please.
Why don't we just cast the freaking guy from Upgrade, because he looks just like Tom Hardy.
You know, his mother lives in my complex, actually, which is pretty amazing. So I can get to him.
Yeah,
I can get to him.
Get the homie discount.
Brian Austin Green. Actually,
Logan Marshall Green.
Oh, excuse me. Logan.
His name is
Logan!
His name is Logan.
Isn't Brian Austin Green from 902?
Yeah, Brian Austin Green was married to Megan Fox for a while.
Dude.
Guys, this is coming together.
It really is.
His name is Logan.
I mean, that's actually really good. And there's already kind of a shorthand between him and the director. He would probably pitch for him too for the role.
100%.
I would totally be on board with that, actually, now that you bring that up.
And that dude has had parts in a couple fighting movies. I believe he's a rough and tumble kind of actor. Does his own stunts, will learn the fighting technique.
So we figured it out.
Yeah.
That's who's going to play Wolverine.
Jesus.
Logan Austin Green?
Logan Marshall Green.
Logan Marshall Green.
Damn it.
Logan
But
Seth,
you know what?
Seth Green.
And now that we're like, what's his name? And that's what we were saying about Chris Hemsworth. And now he's one of the biggest stars of all time.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Dude, the Tom Hardy thing you said, though, it's stuck in my mind. I just put it in there, man. See, there you go.
I love it. All right, guys, we just made a movie. But now, obviously, there's a lot of big and small decisions that haven't been made. We want to know, what are you thinking? What do you want to add? What do you think that we're totally wrong on? We're opening it up to questions and comments. Please bring them on. And there we go.
How you gonna work in all these flashbacks there? I mean, you're talking about there's gonna be a flashback over here. How do you decide?
Yeah, I think the thing with the flashbacks is like it's finding the balance between pushing the narrative and not being gratuitous. Do I think that Logan's gonna bump into Tony Stark at the Stark Expo? No. But do I think that maybe he was one of those POWs in Captain America: The First Avenger, or knew Steve
100%.
Rogers was in that crowd for that show that Rogers comes out with, and he's like, F this, and walks away? Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of giving each of those flashbacks narrative weight, right? Like they need to be fun, and they need to give us an untold piece of Marvel history, but it also needs to reveal something about the character. Yes. It needs to keep painting an ever contradictory picture of Wolverine. So each of these flashbacks, it almost needs to be the Memento thing. It's like through the eyes of Maria Hill, who's on the trail. Every piece of evidence leads to a flashback, and every piece of evidence gets her more confused about what and who she's actually chasing here. And I think the flashbacks need to do that. The flashbacks need to do that to the audience. And the other thing that I think is important, and this may seem innocuous, but we need to have really strict visual rules about how those flashbacks happen. I think the worst version of this is like I'm looking at a piece of paper and the screen blows out in like a special effect and you come back in and now you're on somebody's face and then it's like, to me, it should be really clean. It should be like... you get a reaction in the present and it's just a cut.
I agree 100%. And I love too, like, you're right. It tells about the character. If she thinks like, wow, if Steve Rogers trusted this guy, maybe it's not what I think, because he is not a bad judge of character. He's not here for me to ask, but there's got to be something to it. I think it's even more fun that he's like, wouldn't be alive in the present. Like things like that could be really great to like tell that story.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also something interesting, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, of like Maria Hill encountering interviewing people out on the road, and you can bring in some like really gnarled, grisly character actors, and she's hearing things like, the Hulk almost died once, right? And it's like, what? He almost died? And it becomes like, that's the impetus to the flashback of like Wolverine fighting the Hulk, or the guy, and again, we're getting that with the Abomination anyway, so maybe we don't need to put it into this movie, but even the guy out in the Canadian Arctic who's like, found a bear killed one time, he'd been eaten by wolves. How the hell did wolves kill a bear?
I mean, that's
I don't
part
think
of, like,
it was wolves.
The building of that urban legend.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, yeah. And that and also though, to me, one of the things we can do with this agent character is like, as they build this Baba Yaga case as well. So it's like we're getting the story of basically a Bigfoot cryptid, a super agent with technical skills that are marvelous, literally, and historical anomalies that are giving us a larger conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's why this case is so weird. It's not just weird cryptid moments or these. It's all three of those at the same time.
Yeah,
Look, guys, we got to copyright this.
So I have a question. How are you guys going to explain that mutants haven't been around this whole time in the MCU?
That's a great question, and I think honestly that's a big decision for us to make, because number one, maybe they have been, and our premise is that mutants in the MCU are just much, much rarer than they are in Marvel, right? It could be that there are maybe 100 mutants in the world right now. And the problem is Trask and his team of guys have been tracking this over the past 80 years, and they realize we're at the curve of the hockey stick. You know what I mean? First, there was like 2-3 mutants in the historical record around the time of World War II, and they're just an anomaly. But then the 60s hit, and suddenly there's like communities of mutants that are living like gypsies across the American Southwest. And then by the 80s, suddenly it's like there are mutants in every major city, right? And so now maybe it's not 200, maybe there's 1,000 mutants in the world, but even they don't know. Like, they could just be written off as paranormal phenomena. But if you've really been paying attention, you realize that population's about to explode.
Yeah.
And that's the story. Or it could be some cosmic shenanigans with the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know.
I mean, the Infinity Gauntlet is, I would say that maybe that it has already been increasing, just like you said. And then when the Infinity Gauntlet happened, it, like, people's, like, latent mutant genes maybe
like triggered something.
Or something along those lines, which wouldn't be far from somewhat canon-ish.
And also, one must understand that within X-Men canon, the reason why mutants actually know each other and kick it is because of Cerebro. Yeah. Cerebro is what was the Facebook of mutants. It let them all link up under a single hub.
Oh, Ed, I mean, and that brings up an interesting point. Like, if running with that theory, if our Wolverine sequel is introducing the X-Men, then it sort of becomes this cold, like, not set in the Cold War, but it's like this covert arms race where Professor Xavier invents Cerebro as the Trask people double down. And it's sort of this race to, like, are mutants going to be completely exterminated, or are mutants going to come together to form the X-Men? And it sort of becomes Charles Xavier and his ragtag team of original X-Men, and they might not even be called the X-Men at this point, but it's like, we are now in a death race to recruit and protect as many mutants as possible because the extinction agenda is happening.
And who's a better protector than Wolverine.
Yeah, they bust Wolverine out of jail.
I love it. I think that immediately adds so much more tension and immediacy that, like, for me, the first X-Men movie in 2000 didn't have. It was like, well, we should probably do something about mutants. I don't know. But if it's like, no, we only have like 100 left, and they've got a list of all of them. You better find a way to get to them before they do.
Yeah, you got a Battlestar Galactica feel to it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
It's a part of the extinction agenda.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
love it.
That's what it's.
Did the Reiterator just strike again?
But that's what you call it, jerk.
I just said that.
Get ready to hear your thought again.
Your thought will be back.
Oh, where's your thought? It's here.
All right, we've got time for one, maybe two more questions, depending on how intense these questions are.
You have to use your fan voice.
Oh. This is my fan voice. This is terrible. Why would I say that about nerds? Nerds don't sound like that. Hello.
Oh, thank you, Isaac Hayes, for coming to LA Comic Con.
Oh, yeah.
The Marlboro Man wants to ask us a Wolverine question.
Why are there any black people in this movie?
That's a great question.
I don't want to feel that you guys go first.
Well, I think the one
I was
thing.
kidding.
Well, I was
No,
going to answer.
I think
we
I-
gotta be ready.
I definitely think that the MCU has shown that you can take these characters and reimagine them for the times that we are in now, and I definitely think that diversity is part of that. And I think we've set up enough new characters that we've definitely opened ourselves up. I've seen fan castings online. I know it's not this particular movie of like Denzel Washington as Magneto, which I think is so inspired. It's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that we can lay those seeds just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done itself.
Oh yeah, and who's to say that at some point in the movie they don't talk to somebody who knew T'Chaka, and T'Chaka had a couple run-ins with some weird dude at the gate? Like,
They
man,
should.
how do you even know that we're here?
Oh,
why are
dude.
you over here?
How did you
messing
cut
around?
through adamantium?
yeah, exactly.
How did you cut through vibranium? There
Yeah,
should-
that's what I meant. How
there
did you cut
should
through vibranium?
100% be a flashback set in 1992 Oakland where somebody is sent after N'Jaba, or N'Jaka, whoever that character was that T'Chaka kills. Somebody, and by somebody I mean Wolverine, is like an asset sent to kill this prince in hiding that somebody is aware of being there, but the mission fails, or the assassin walks away.
Yeah, the assassin decides not to do it, which causes another kerfuffle, which ends up in like, oh yeah, we lost a bunch of good guys that day, and then we don't know where Johnny went. They're calling him Johnny.
I kind of
he
love.
wasn't a Johnny.
I love this idea that it's like. Just like we keep like the JFK stuff and all this stuff a secret, like Wakanda knows that there's this other metal that can cut through it, and it's like a deep dark secret
Oh, I
that
love
only
that.
the top advisors
Right,
know.
and I know this is I'm not trying to die on hills or anything, but I think it should be we're introducing adamantium as a super duper rare, super duper metal that we don't even know.
It can only be engineered in a lab. I think that's
No.
I
I get that. No,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. It's created by a new process that no one understands, not Stark, not anybody. And the people who control that knowledge have a lot of power doing different stuff that we can explore later.
Or most of them were killed by Wolverine.
Yeah, I like that. That it's like he's got this.
So now there's nobody else who can have
No one
adamantium.
else can get it.
Right.
I think it's dope.
And I think it's this kill pattern that he's doing is to make sure that nobody else goes through this. Because I don't think him hunting down other that's the thing that killed me about all that. He's trying to make sure that whole program is shut down.
Right.
He's trying to make sure that it can never happen. Because the thing is, they put metal inside of him. They didn't graft it on the claws he already had. Because that's canon for like a few years. For most of the canon of Wolverine proper, it's almost like people getting fixated over web shooters out of the wrist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's almost like people getting fixated on that.
You mean like me?
I'm saying the fact that if somebody liked that more than the goddamn him making the web shooters,
Yeah.
that's people liking Bone Claws more than them bionically enhancing him.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. So I think that we had, if we put that thing of like, they put super metal in me that my body's fighting all the time. I'm in constant pain. I'm a badass, but I'm in constant pain. This is horrible. This is horrific. This is the life I've made with this. affliction, and I will never let anybody do this to me or anybody else again.
And it's never ending life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
What better way to end this panel than with a patented Ed Greer, I'm going to die on this hill rant. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have your Wolverine reboot. You're welcome. If you liked what you heard, you will like it even more when you can see it. That's right, all subsequent episodes of Rebooted will be released on video. Check the show notes for a link or go to youtube.com and search Reboot It. We will be releasing the next 5 episodes on a bi-weekly schedule, and maybe, just maybe, if you're good, we will get you a bonus episode at the end of all of this. But Wolverine marked the beginning of the series. This was our Fox episode. We are moving into all of the 6 major studios, so that's Disney, Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Sony, and like I said, maybe above and beyond that. But for right now, if you liked what you heard, make sure you are subscribed to both the Nerd Goat podcast featuring Ed Greer and Ron Swallow and Hot Takes with Billy Business featuring your boy Billy Business. And get on YouTube, subscribe to the Reboot It channel. You will get every new show. Share it with your friends. Share it far and wide. If you liked what we're doing here, let us know. We are on social media. Search Ed Greer, Ron Swallow, or Billy Business, and it will all come up. You could see me, producer Bill, at CBillDraw on Instagram. And until next time, we'll keep creating. You guys keep listening. For Ed Greer, Billy Business, Ron Swallow, I'm producer Bill from the corner office. Bye, everybody.